Hey listeners, it's Jana. Welcome back to Grief Out Loud. Have you ever found yourself trying to outrun grief? Just keeping your head down, staying busy, and pushing through. That's exactly what Camila Cruz did when she was 19 and her mother died. But 20 years later, following the heartbreaking disappearance and death of her father, Camila found that she couldn't just keep running. She had to stop, and she had to start feeling. Facing that deep pain eventually inspired Camila to found Sorry for Your Loss Cards, an initiative that centers the experiences of Black and Brown communities. Through workshops, cards, and community connections, she's working to decrease the heavy isolation that so often comes with grief. Today, Camila joins me to talk about the instinct to just keep moving, what it's like to live with the unanswered questions surrounding her father's death, and the importance of culturally specific grief resources. And while I didn't plan for this, I'm publishing this episode on June 4th, which is also Camila's father's birthday. What a privilege it was for me to get to know just a little bit about him through her. Okay, here's our conversation. Camila, welcome to Grief Out Loud.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Tell us about your parents. What were your relationships with them like? How were they unique? How were they similar?
My parents, I feel like were interesting people. I'm a little bit of a astrology girly, so it's a Aries and a Gemini. So I imagine just lots of fun, right? So a fiery person, and that being my mom, like a small person who always weighed like 120 pounds. I prayed every day for her metabolism, although I did not get that. And then my dad was just a very creative person, but also very structured, which is very funny to me because my aunt always told me like this funny story at his memorial where she said as a kid, he basically in Jamaica, there was this notorious hill that people would ride their bikes down. And as a child, he would do that in which people notoriously like broke bones going down this hill. And my father would do that all the time. And the person my father was, I would have never guessed that because he was like very straight laced. When she told me that story, I'm like, my dad, and she's like, yes, your dad used to go down that hill all the time as a kid. So it was just very funny to hear that story later on in life. So my dad was just like this person that immigrated to this country when he was like in his early 20s, and he built something from nothing. So he really just taught me, I felt like, to be a bold and audacious person, and really that there were no limits in life because he had a limited elementary school education, left school early to help provide for his family, and then came to this country and built something out of nothing. And two of his children became college educated. And then my mother was a dreamer, and she was an executive assistant for most of her career. And then she was a singer and in a band at night. So I feel like I just came from two people who certainly had dreams, and one was able to see their dreams realized, and one person was striving to do so.
So a lot of vision, a lot of creativity, a lot of dedication.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you were just 19 when your mother died. And what do you remember about what grief was like for you as a 19-year-old?
That's a good question. I feel like I don't remember a lot about it because I feel like I tried to run from it. I spent a lot of my adult life running from grief. And I think more importantly, where I stand now as a 40 something is that I, that was probably the moment that I can say, oh, wow, obviously losing a mother in as my sophomore year in college was a really life-changing event. But I really experienced grief for the first time when I was 9, which is when my mother first moved away from me, which was when I was 9, and I'm from Rhode Island, which is where we were living at the time, but my mother moved to go back to her home state of Chicago. So I feel like that was like the first time I experienced grief. My mother left me two times. The first time she was still physically here, but then 19 was like where her physical body left me. So 19 was the first time where I just can remember I consciously was burying my feelings, I feel like.
You said you ran when you were
Oh,
19. And
yes.
what did that look like? I know it can be different for everyone.
For me, it was burying myself in school. So I was a sophomore in college at the time. I remember it so vividly. Like at the gym that morning, my dad kept calling me. I had the little Nokia Snake phone. It was like 2001. My dad was calling me. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning. I was like, why is he calling me? But my dad would call at 6 a.m. He notoriously gets up early. So I'm like, whatever, like it's probably nothing important. And so I remember him telling me my mom died, and I went to class and I went to work. And I told my best friend and roommate, I was like, do not tell anybody because I was not, I don't want to say ashamed, but like I just didn't want everyone looking at me or like being like, oh my gosh, her mom died. I just pushed through and I just continued to go to school and go to work. And I flew out to Chicago for a few days. And it was the week after September 11th. So, like, everything had changed in terms of how we traveled. And then I just came back to school a few days later and I just continued on. And I did that for like the next 20 years until my dad passed. It went from putting everything into school into putting everything into work. So I feel like for me, it was just about finding a place to put my energy so that it would not go into actually realizing how I was feeling.
Do you have a sense, Camila, with your mother leaving when you were 9,
Mhm.
like physically moving away from you, with that circumstance, what was the story you told yourself about grieving after she died?
I will say, I think there's always been like a push pull of like, to your point, like, oh, is it really that big of a difference because she wasn't there day to day, right? I think for me, it was a lot of the grief is complicated because there's a part of me that is resentful, right? And I had to contend with me being resentful because I do know part of the story why she left, but it doesn't it doesn't like make it okay. Like my adult brain is very can rationalize it and be like, oh wow, like my mom was like when my mom passed, I'm older than my mother, right? My mother was 40 years old when she passed, and she had a 19-year-old and a 20, what my brother's 4 years older than me. So my brother was like 20, 21, 22 at the time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm over here. I'm still like, I'm a wee little baby, right? Like I still can't even fathom that, right? But that doesn't take away from the fact that I'm like, okay, but still at the end of the day, yes, she was on a quest to find herself, but that doesn't take away from the fact that you are a mother. And even though you were on this quest to find yourself, I became a casualty of, I still was abandoned, regardless of if it was in my best interest to stay with my father. That still left me with this invisible scar. And I can't rationalize at 9 years old, that was the reason why she left. And given the structure of my family, there wasn't a conversation about the whys, or it's not like I was put into therapy. So it's like I'm still piecing together that abandonment wound. And that's a wound that's never going to heal. So I still have to be like, oh my goodness, having to come from that place in my grief and knowing even now that there's so much that is tied to it, even when I've had to go to therapy for things pertaining to my dad, where all of that stuff, I always say, like, you go for grief, and then it's like, wait a second, I didn't want to, I came here to talk about why they died. I didn't come here to like drudge up all this other stuff. Like, what is going on? So, yeah, I think that a lot of it was a lot of like two things can be true, and trying to like hold those two truths at the same time, and that I can hold the feeling of resentment and deal with that, but also hold the grief of not having a mother and what could have been in our later years. So it's definitely has been a lot of complexity when it comes with the grief. And I think it's important because not everyone has this cookie cutter story as much as people would like. And even I think as Mother's Day comes this in the month of May, there are so many people that are challenged with that as well. There are a lot of people that have mothers who are still living and maybe are choosing not to be a part of their lives. Like I have friends who have me and one of my dearest friends, we've had a conversation about this because she has an estranged mother relationship with her mother. And when we were talking, she's like, I almost feel like it's worse because she's like, her mom's alive and they don't have a relationship. And she's like, she's here and she's choosing not to have a relationship, you know? And it's not like we were trying to like compare our pain points, but there's also a lot of grief with that, even though that person is present and alive. So there's so many different complexities and nuances when you speak about grief, even if the person is still among us.
Yeah. And with your mom dying, it cut off the potential for, like you said, reconnecting in the future, or at least having a conversation about that why, or meeting her as an adult. There's just, you have to do all that on your own. It's pretty one sided, that processing now.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually talking to my brother about it a few weeks ago because I was like, you have all these stories because like I feel like I have like bits and pieces and glimpses and like, you know, I have like some letters that she wrote me because this is like in the late 90s, you know? So it was letters and I would go visit her like once or twice a year. And she moved back to Rhode Island, like I believe when I was like 11 or 13, but I just have glimpses of our relationships. I don't have like this continuity. So in a lot of ways, I'm like, I don't feel like I know my mother. I just feel like I know things about her. So there's also a lot of grief that comes with that because I feel like I have to like piece together stories that people tell me about my mother. And then there's certain aspects of her that I know or that I grasp to remember. But this September is going to be the 25th anniversary of her death. And I'm like, at this point, she's been gone longer than I had her. You know what I mean? So there's also just that reconciling of it, but it doesn't also negate the fact that there are certain things like, as I'm talking about, like aging and, you know, there's things I don't know. I don't know when I'm going to be menopausal because I'm like, I can't
Mm.
turn to my mother and be like, oh, this is what happened. I'm just like, I don't know. I just kind of have to wait and see what's going to happen because I don't have certain things that I can turn to as a reference point.
But there's just an absence and a vacancy in terms of that knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So from 19 to 39, you're just going to school and working and putting all of
Mm-hmm.
that energy of grief into productivity. And
Yes.
then at 39, your father dies. And how did that shift things for you?
That shifted things because I I used like like I used all my push through coupons. Like I thought I was like, oh well, it sounds now when I say it, it just sounds absolutely ridiculous. But at the time, I was just kind of like, well, my mom died, so like I've been through this before, you know. Literally naively, kind of was like, oh, I'll be fine. Like I've been through this before. And then it's like, and then I was like, girl, and my middle name is Anne. And then I'm like, you are literally an orphan now. Like, I literally was just like, oh my gosh, I don't have any parents. And then the other piece of it was just, oh my gosh, my dad has been here my entire life. The only time I had not seen my dad was like during the pandemic. And my father was in his 70s. So, of course, we had to wait until the vaccine came out so I could see him. But we were like FaceTiming and everything because I lived in Los Angeles and he was in Rhode Island. So, I'd never not seen my dad. Everything just crumbled. And it was the first time where I just became completely debilitated. And so, unlike with my mother, I could not ignore it. I had to like face it, I felt like, because it just, in terms of what it was doing to me, the only thing I could do at the time was get up and go to work. I was scheduled to go out of the country and go on a trip. Like I couldn't even go on a trip. Like I just fell into like the deepest despair and depression ever. And so I had to go get help and I had to face it. I forget there's a saying about grief where like you have to go through it eventually. Like, but I don't know exactly what the saying is, but I know that it's like basically it's gonna catch up with you one day. Like may not be now, like it took me 20 years, but essentially you're gonna have to go through it at some point.
So I can't think of that phrase either right now. It's something like the only way to go through it is to go through it, but that's not
Yeah,
right. But
something
it's
like that. Yeah.
that's that sense, right? Like,
Yeah.
and like you said, like my push through coupons like book was empty. There was no more.
Yes.
So you said it really impacted you with a lot of sense of despair. How else did the grief affect you?
Um, it it just so outside of I will say outside of it completely gutting me, it led me to myself in a lot of ways because it really changed me and got me to starting Sorry for Your Loss because it allowed me to see like a lot of the gaps that happen when it comes to grief, where I started going to a grief support group, and the group I was in, all women, we all lost our dads, and we were all just kind of screaming into the void. We're like, I don't feel supported, but then we also wouldn't ask for support. So we were just like, we're having the same experience. And I do know that for myself, I'm definitely the type of person that's like, yes, I'll speak up about a problem, but I'm definitely like, how do you solve the problem? So I'm like, how can we start talking more about grief? Because I don't think that anyone doesn't want to help, but I do think that we're in a place societally where we have a lot of discomfort with grief. So because we feel uncomfortable, we just don't talk about it. But then it's isolating us from supporting people who are going through it. And it's a human experience that we all go through. That's not just related to loss of people, but also like where we are societally, especially right now with like such a huge loss of jobs and people's identities that are attached to their jobs. So that really led me to creating a space in which people will have the comfort and the knowledge of being able to just speak about grief and feel less isolated about having those important conversations amongst people who are going through the same thing.
Yeah, I love that. I don't love, but I just really appreciate that. Like, here we are, a group of people. We've all had our dads die. We all need support, and none of us ask for it because we don't either know how or it's too exhausting. And that you came out of that of like, how do I shift the context? How do I equip people with the skills to show up so that the person who's grieving doesn't have to do so much of the work to get that support?
Yes, absolutely.
I want to talk more about Sorry for Your Lost cards. So we're going to get there. But first, I want to just stick with your story a little bit longer. How did the circumstances around your father's death impact or shape or influence your grief?
I feel like the circumstance, it's made it a little, probably has brought it a little bit on the inside in some ways because it's a little bit different. Because it's like it's a missing persons slash kidnap slash like murder investigation case. So it's like, I just got a phone call from my sister essentially just saying like dad's missing. And I'm like, what? Like my dad is from Jamaica, and he split his time between here, America and Jamaica, and he's very like systematic. Like he does the same things all the time, right? So it's like he's not like, oh, I was drinking and I stayed out. Like he's not that type of person. So it was just like, how can he go missing? Like it just doesn't make any sense. And so that alone just was like alarm bells. And I watch true crime like most people do, and I'm just like, okay, you hear someone's missing, it just is never a good thing because in my mind, whenever that happens, it never ends up well in most cases. we go down there and, we're not getting too much information. And then, like, a couple of days later, his car is found burned. And I'm just like, okay, find a car burned. Usually people are trying to hide something. That happened like 4 years ago as of March 23rd of this year. So it's just like, it's it's two things. It's like it's a take-in situation. It's like I struggle with even using the words like, oh, I lost my dad, because I'm like, I didn't lose anything. He was taken. So that whole situation is just adds another layer. Then there's the piece about it being like it's still technically unsolved. So there's not any closure. And then also the fact that it's two different countries. So dealing with two different jurisdictions, and like there's so much red tape that happens. So like when I see like this Ashley Janae story in Zanzibar and other people that go through these things, or even like the Savannah Guthrie story, even though that's domestic, it's like my heart just goes out to these people, whether someone's missing or something happens out of the country. It can be so sensationalized in the media, but like there are real families that are behind these things that are happening. And it's so gut wrenching just to see what people have to go through, especially when it's missing persons and you just don't have any answers. And then you also just supposed to go back to your life, and you can't explain what that feels like, and feeling like a zoo animal in some kind of ways, or people just kind of looking at you strangely. Because I think even if someone hasn't lost a loved one, they can like imagine what that would be like. But when it comes to like missing persons things, it's just this doesn't happen to people in real life, or at least that's how it feels.
There's so many added layers of your story that aren't easily communicated and that not a lot of people can relate to.
Exactly. So yeah, so that makes it so it's very like, so I don't often speak about that piece because it just feels like I often don't speak about it because quite honestly, I just don't want to answer a lot of questions about it. So I usually just, yeah, my dad, I just usually will just leave it at that.
Well, I'm picturing you going to that support group where, you might go around the room and everyone shares who died and how that person died and how complex that answer would be for you.
Yeah, I don't recall what I said at the time, and then it would be funny because maybe not funny, but like my primary care doctor, like every time I would go, and she's like, "Oh, they find your dad." I'm like, "Yeah, he just wandered out of the bush." Like, I'm just like, "Stop!" Like, I just don't want. And then it's like, I get it. Like, people don't know what to say, and it's like, I understand where it's like, okay, if people want to ask, but I'm like, this is why I'm like, whenever someone's like, what should you say? I'm like, ask the person like if they would like you to bring it up. Because I appreciate you asking me, but at the same time, I promise I'll tell you if there's an update. But please don't keep asking me if they found him, because if they found him at this point, I promise you it's probably not going to be him in an alive situation at this point. So
With that, Camila, and you can tell me if you don't want to answer this question. I'm just wondering, at what point did you go in your heart and your mind from my dad is missing to my dad has died?
oh, as soon as the burnt car, as soon as I saw the car, I was like, oh, there's yeah, as soon as I saw the car, I was like, any hope I had. I mean, probably the missing part was probably the my initial instinct. Oh, maybe it'll be like a ransom kind of a situation. But when nothing like that happened, then I was like, okay, there was no demand for money or anything. Then that's I was like, oh, and then the car happened like the second day. So after the car, I was like, oh, I didn't have any hope. And then at this point, I just want to just get the death certificate, because in Jamaica, after 7 years, they can just legally proclaim someone deceased. At this point, I just would prefer to just have him declared dead so that we can at least just tie up everything business wise, estate wise. But that's just difficult to do. I'm not looking for the answers because I don't believe that will come. And I don't know that's going to make me feel any better because the only thing that'll make me feel better is to get him back, and which is not possible. And I feel like if there's a burned car, anything that will come after that is not going to be good. So I just don't feel like I need the details.
Has that been a challenge within your family? I'm just imagining that people have different ways of relating to that and people being in different places in terms of their assessment of what's happened.
Yeah, like a couple of my siblings definitely want to know. They definitely want answers. And I can understand why. So yeah, there's definitely difference of opinion there. I play out the whole scenario and then I'm like, I think of what the why is, and I'm like, well, why do I need to know? You know? So, but yeah, but to your point, absolutely, there's definitely differences of opinions for sure.
Well, and I think one of the truisms in the world of grief is like grief is different for everyone, and sometimes we think like, oh, that just means we feel different and we express our emotions different, but it's as precise as like what types of information people feel like they need or don't need, or what they want to hear or what they don't want to hear, and that can create some negotiation challenges within a family dynamic in that way.
Yeah, yeah, everyone, it is so interesting. Everyone does handle it so differently, which is so fun. Like I'm the like go to therapy, and everybody's like, okay, girl. Like, so we all do handle it very. I'm like very much like head first in with it, and everyone else was like, I'm okay, but I also had to be the one to acknowledge that like there's a age gap with me and some of my other siblings, and we have different mothers. So I'm like, okay, they haven't gone through the same loss I've gone through either, right? So I have to give them that um I have to give them that grace because I'm like, I've been through this a loss of a parent before and they haven't. I have to be like, well, when I was also their age, I wasn't exactly ready to dive headfirst either. So I have to let them go on their own journeys with it. And I think that there are a lot of parallels of grief, but also it's like a fingerprint and we all experience it differently. So
I'm wondering about the parallel between your company that you started, Sorry for Your Lost Cards, which is so much more than that. You have a lot of really helpful information for both people who are grieving and people who are wanting to be supporters of those who are grieving. And also, you've been talking more about like the silence around grief and the privatization of grief. And your company is so like the opposite of that. So I just wondered if you wanted to talk a little bit about that.
yeah, I think at the end of the day, what is so important to me and like why I really have even just jumped into this work and kind of done a whole 180 from being a entertainment publicist into this work is because this is, grief is something that is in all of our lives and we don't talk about it, and we're not talking about it again really because we want to be comfortable, and we have to challenge ourselves to be uncomfortable because it's something that we all go through, and it's like not until you go through it and you have the experience do you understand how much you need people and how much it impacts you day to day, right? And it's not just the loss of people, which is like that's the isolating part, right? Where it's like, oh, well, you lost your mom and your dad, and I'm so sorry that you're an orphan, but my parents are fine. And it's like, yeah, but you might go through like this really devastating divorce, or you might like you might lose your house, or like you might lose your job. The walls might just close in around you, and you might really need the support system, and then you can understand what it's like, and we don't want people to have to get to that point to then understand what it's like to need empathy and to need support and to need your community to rally around you. And I think the parallel probably to this that most people can understand is motherhood is or becoming parents likely is because that's when you have a very life-changing thing happen to you that can feel very isolating, and when you all of a sudden have something new come into your life that completely upends it, which, yes, has positives attached to it, but you need your village to come together. Your life is completely changing. You need all of the support. You maybe don't know how to ask for it. That is what happens when you're grieving. We oftentimes are very much scared to ask for support. I know that for me, a lot of my place in my family as like the eldest daughter, the first person to go to college, like a lot of my strength and a part of this I've built up, and even from my abandonment wound too, was like, I can take this on myself. So I became very self-sufficient at an early age. I've accomplished a lot academically and professionally. So I've always built my armor around how much I help myself and how much I help other people. So even to this day, I struggle to ask for help. Like it is, if I ask someone to do something, it is give me an award for it because it is very like I'm literally like, guess what I did today? I asked for help. Like it is a struggle bus. I'll have a broken leg and like walk myself up the stairs. It is hard to do. So it is a badge of honor oftentimes to be like stoic and to do all these things for yourself, but it's like you don't truly get an award for that in life, and people are not meant to do life on their own. And so I really have built this community so that we are able to talk about grief and really take away some of the social stigmas that we've been taught in terms of, okay, this is the thing for you to go handle by yourself. And here's how not only you can cope with grief in your moments alone, but here are the ways that you can draw in the people within your community to support you as well.
What are some of the offerings with Sorry for Your Loss cards?
So some of the offerings, so we have greeting cards or grief support cards. And those are just like, if you need to send someone a card because maybe they did lose their job, maybe they went through a breakup, maybe they did lose a person. There's a heart-shaped QR code inside of it, and it takes them to some self-care tips. Also takes them to our pull-up passes, which are essentially ways to ask for support. So if someone says to them, "Hey, what can I do for you?" Then they have some things like, hey, you can just come sit with me or just check on me or pick up the kids. Just gives them ideas. Sure, they'll come up with their own things. If you're looking for ways to support someone, it shows you how you can support them. Just drop off some food, or just, maybe you're like, hey, I'm going to come watch a movie with you, or hey, I'm going to pull out your trash for you if you're their neighbor. We also have some community events that we do. Like in LA, we do a griefy walk in the park once a month. So just a way to be in community with people. Don't have to talk if you don't like to, or if you want to connect with some people that may have gone through loss, then you can do that. We also offer sit with it dinners where you just come, have a great meal, and get to be in community with people experience loss. It's not meant to be clinical. So I would say if you were like a grief org, it's a nice middle ground to be in partnership with us because we're not offering clinical support. We're not treating trauma or anything like that. We're just like a community based organization that's there to say, hey, if you have had these experiences and you want to be in community, we're here with you. So those are some of our offerings.
I love the idea of the QR code where you can like check in that way and share things with your friends and your community or find some ideas for yourself. I think you've written about or maybe spoken about how important it was for you to create these resources in a really also culturally specific way. I wondered if you could say a little more about that.
Yeah, so two things. So one, when I was creating these resources, I had not seen a lot of stuff that was really speaking to people who look like me, which was really important. Like in my grief group, I was the only person of color that was there. Like oftentimes when I'm in these spaces, it's usually myself and maybe one other person, and I want to be it's extremely important because oftentimes in communities of color, there's a stigma attached to getting resources or getting help outside of the home. And especially for me, I come from a I'm a child of an immigrant, so then we're adding another hat on a hat when it comes to seeking out resources. And to tackle that even more, later in May, I'm going to be having a panel discussion about like who's your mental health team. That is going to be talking about like what are some of the grief resources that are for you, because again, in starting my journey, I did go to therapy. I'm a proponent of therapy, but therapy does not work for everybody. Specifically, in a lot of communities of color, sometimes it is just you're taught keep it in the house. So if you're always taught to keep something in the house, then it's you're kind of going against, okay, now I'm going to go tell a stranger my problems, right? So you maybe are fighting against what you're taught culturally and then to go outside and do that. This is me purely seeking on lived experience. So I'm not a clinician in any way. I'm just talking about my own lived experience. I want to provide people with options because usually what I saw was I am a researcher. I like to go look for options, but I saw therapy as an option, but I didn't see coaching as an option, which is relatively new or as around like 2010, 2011-ish. That is more so for people who have a goal that they want to achieve, but those are not therapists. So if you want to have a goal in terms of your grief, what does that look like? So I want to show people what grief coaching looks like as an option. It's also somatic healers who help you move grief out of your body. So it's very important for me to show people what the landscape looks like in terms of grief and showing them that, hey, maybe if I don't love talking, but I love movement, maybe somatic healing is good for me. Maybe if I'm more of a achiever and having a checklist, then maybe I want to start in coaching. And maybe if I like to talk things out and I want to treat my trauma, then I should go to a therapist. Or maybe I need a gumbo and I need all of these people. But at least from a cultural standpoint, if you are not stopping at therapy and that's it, because it seems like, and I've been guilty of this too, of just telling people to go to therapy when it's like, maybe that's not the only thing they need. And maybe they need to be looking at other options. But oftentimes it feels like it's only one stop, but what are we doing with the people who do need to have their grief dealt with in a way, or they need help with their grief? And then if they are opting out of therapy, what are they to be left with? And at the end of the day, I think whether you're just in community and you're able to be expressive or you are in a clinical setting, we need to be able to give people options so that they are able to be in what they deem safe spaces and they are able to start to cope with their healing process in a setting that is safe when they are ready to do that. But I do want to be able to provide people with those options. And I want people to be able to see themselves as well so that they don't feel like they don't belong in those spaces because they're not seeing people who look like them.
So, a lot of work to destigmatize support and also broadening what support can look like, taking it out of just the more traditional clinical therapy room, which fits so well with a lot of the advocacy that so many people are doing, including our organization, to recognize that grief is not a mental disorder. And so
Mm-hmm.
if it's not a mental disorder, how else can we be supporting people in non-clinical ways as well? With the recognition that therapy is extremely important for folks as well. But what else can people turn to?
Absolutely. It's so important. So yeah, that is what I'm trying to do. Because listen, grief is I don't know. We have a love-hate relationship. I feel like it's like a little situationship. Like it's like, it's like, ooh, I like you, but I don't, Like there's really great things about it. But then it's like, why? Like grief has brought me, it's challenged me in so many ways because sometimes I'm like, why am I here? Like, why did this thing have to like just attach itself to me? But it has really been freeing in a lot of ways at the same time. Like, I have to admit, because I don't know that I would have like found my way to myself if it wasn't for grief, because I do feel like I had to absolutely go through it. And then it just allowed me to like release so much and to get to like the core of myself because you can really truly not, I mean, you can outrun it if you try. Not that you can't outrun it, but I almost feel like it's a disservice because you just hide so many parts of yourself and or deny so many parts of yourself because you have to deny a lot of parts of yourself if you don't face your grief. You know, it like really strips you and you have to be honest with yourself if you're going to truly face it.
Well, and this image of if you're always trying to outrun grief, something's always chasing you,
Yes.
and that's not the most supportive, growth focused environment if you're constantly being chased by something that you're trying to escape.
Yeah, and you know what I'll say too? It's made me be so much more sober with life. I remember like I would distract myself with so many things, and it allowed me to completely rid myself of my distractions and be so raw with my feelings. And I never used to do that. Like I'd be like, oh, I need to have a glass of wine, or I need to go here and do that. And now I'm just like, I'll cry, I'll be angry. Like I will just soberly handle my feelings without distraction. And I never used to be like that. And although it'll be like super painful in the moment, it will just like it will pass. It's almost like it's like grief is a storm at times. Like it will like, it leaves all this wreckage or whatever if it's a thunderstorm, but then it's like, but then the sun just comes out like it just never happened. So it's very interesting.
Now you just have lifting weights and eating protein as your distractions.
Exactly. Literally. Listen, the working out, I will say, that is like the saving grace. I have to do it like I have to move my body in some capacity every day because it just like it is the one thing that just helps me so much. It just I don't know what it is about the working out, but it elevates my moods on a daily basis. It's just like, okay, we're gonna start today strong.
Well, Camila, I have one last more personal question for you before we wrap up today, and that's around Father's Day. You mentioned Mother's Day is coming up in May, and then Father's Day is right after that in June. And I wonder what's your relationship to that day been like since your dad died?
Honestly, it hasn't really changed. I will say I will stay off the interwebs. I stay off the Instagram a little bit more because I'm like, oh, look at you with your father. I do kind of get those kind of things. So I stay off Instagram a little more because the thing is, my dad's birthday is June 4th and my birthday is June 8th. So that's a little bit more where it stings is because our birthdays are very close, more so than the Father's Day piece of things. So I just more so try to stay off of Instagram because I know that it's going to get like flooded with images of people and their dads. So
With your and your dad's birthdays being 4 days apart, who had the bigger birthday celebrations growing up, you or your dad?
my dad he would be like, oh, it's my birthday. Like he would act like he doesn't know. Like, meanwhile, I'm like, oh, I'm a pain when it comes to my birthday. Like I'm an utter child. Like one of because it's graduation season, my brother graduated from high school on my birthday. I was like in my 30s. I was so upset. Like I was irrationally upset. And I know they look at me like, man. And I was like, it is my birthday. It is my birthday, but I got over it. We did what the brother wanted to do, but my father was very relaxed about his birthday. I'm the one that would continue to make a fuss about it at any age. I'm like,
As
I
you
came
should.
into the earth. I'm like, everyone's life changed for the better today. I don't understand why we are not all excited about this day. What is going on? So yeah, it was definitely me for sure.
And yours is the 8th, right, of June?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, this year
Yeah.
on June 8th, I will be thinking of it as Camila Day for sure.
See, you get it.
I get
Thank you.
it.
I appreciate that. I very much do appreciate that. Thank you so much.
I understand the Gemini piece of the birthday.
I know. I try not to tell people. They're like, "What are you?" I'm like, Aquarius rising. As soon as I say the G word, it's like, where's the holy water?
Well, Camila, for listeners who want to connect with you, kind of stay in touch with what you're working on with Sorry for Your Lost Cards and all the other things that you're doing in the grief world, where can they connect with you?
They can connect. Instagram's where I'm most active. So that's Sorry for Your Lost Cards on Instagram. And the website is sorryforyourlostcards.com.
Great. Well, listeners, that'll be in the show notes as it always is. And Camila, thank you for this conversation, for sharing so much with me about your life and your parents and your dad and just all the things that you're doing in the world to try to make all of us a little bit more equipped to support people.
Well, thank you for having me. This was fun. I appreciate it.
And listeners out there, you know I thank you each and every time for being part of our community, for making the show mean something, for sharing episodes with people who might be helped in some way by what we are talking about. If you'd like to connect with me, you can email me at griefoutloud@dougy.org. That's dougy.org. That's also our main website. And there you'll find information about our local programming, our free downloadable resources, and each and every episode of Grief Out Loud. Another thing to point out about the website, it's where you can find information about all of our trainings that are available. We have a series of webinars throughout the year, and then also some online learning courses that you can take at your own pace. So you'll want to go to dougy.org to learn more there. Always excited to share that the podcast is sponsored in part by the Chester Stephan Endowment Fund. Thanks again for listening. Hope you'll join us again next time.